Kore Mwapinduka and welcome to Africa Good Morning on this beautiful Tuesday morning. I'm your host, Glenora Shipura. Let's take a look at what you can expect in today's broadcast. Kenya's President William Ruto reshuffles his security team after a man breaches presidential protection during a public rally. In Senegal, political tensions deepen as President Bassirou Diomaye Faye dismisses Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, sparking mixed reactions and uncertainty over future leadership. Uganda reports a tragic wildlife collision after a vehicle hits an elephant in Murchison Falls National Park, killing 3 people. In Benin, regional diplomacy takes center stage as Niger's Prime Minister attends President Romuald Wadagni's inauguration, signaling a possible thaw in Sahel relations. We will also be taking a look at the Zimbabwe report with Talent Gore, along with bringing you economic news. We'll be right back on the other side of this.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative sport tourism.
In our top stories, Kenya's police chief has ordered a major reshuffle of President William Ruto's security team after a man managed to breach multiple layers of protection during a Thanksgiving event in eastern Kenya. The incident occurred on Sunday when the man, carrying what appeared to be a Bible, climbed onto the stage and briefly embraced the president while he was addressing supporters. Security officers quickly intervened and removed him with no injuries reported. Inspector General Douglas Kanja described the breach as unacceptable and a matter of grave national concern, announcing that a new head of the Presidential Escort Unit has been appointed, while several senior officers have been suspended or placed on leave. Authorities have launched an investigation into how the individual bypassed security systems. President Ruto later downplayed the incident, telling security officers, "Leave that young man alone." The incident has raised fresh concerns over presidential security at public rallies in Kenya. Moving on, Senegal faces political uncertainty after Sonko's dismissal. Senegal is facing renewed political uncertainty after President Bassirou Diomaye Faye dismissed Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko and dissolved the government following months of tension between the two leaders. The decision has sparked divided reactions in Dakar, with some residents praising Sonko's leadership and others supporting the president's constitutional authority to make changes in government. Sonko remains highly popular among Senegal's youth, with supporters saying they will continue to back him despite his removal from office. The dismissal comes at a time when Senegal is grappling with a growing debt burden and economic pressure. Analysts say the fallout between Faye and Sonko could reshape the country's political landscape, especially ahead of the 2029 electoral cycle. Sonko, who previously resigned from parliament to serve as prime minister, is now expected to return to legislative politics, where his party already holds a strong majority. The political rift raises questions about stability and governance in one of West Africa's most closely watched democracies. Moving on, at least 3 people have been killed after a vehicle collided with an elephant in Uganda's Murchison Falls National Park. Police say the vehicle carrying 7 Uganda Revenue Authority officials was traveling from Arua to Kampala when the crash occurred on Sunday evening. 4 other passengers were injured and later transferred to Kampala for further treatment. Authorities have not confirmed the condition of the elephant involved. Wildlife officials say such incidents are becoming more frequent as human activity and transport routes expand into protected areas. The Uganda Wildlife Authority has urged motorists to exercise caution when driving through national parks, warning that wild animals often cross roads unexpectedly. The tragedy highlights ongoing safety challenges in Uganda's wildlife corridors and road transport systems. In our next story, diplomatic attention has turned to Benin after Niger's Prime Minister Ali Mahamane Lamine Zaine attended the inauguration of President Romuald Wadagni in Cotonou. The visit is being viewed as a possible step towards restoring relations between Benin and Niger following months of tension after the 2023 military coup in Niamey. Relations between the 2 countries had deteriorated due to border closures and political disagreements. Speaking at the event, Zaine described the moment as a new path opening up and called for stronger cooperation. President Wadagni, in his inaugural address, emphasized regional stability and dialogue, pledging to deepen cooperation with neighboring states. Analysts say the gesture could mark the beginning of a gradual diplomatic reset in West Africa, where security threats and political divisions have strained regional unity. Now, that concludes our top stories. We now take a look at the weather report before we return with Talent Gore with the latest news from Zimbabwe.
One of Zimbabwe's biggest supermarkets, OK Zimbabwe Limited, has suspended all salaries and wages with immediate effect. As the struggling retailers' corporate rescue proceedings enter a critical phase, the resolution signed on 22 May 2026 states that the company will therefore not be running any payroll beginning of the month of May 2026 until further notice, and in any case until such time that business and revenue return to profitable levels. OK Zimbabwe is one of the country's largest retail chains.
We now swing over to the House of Stone, where Talent Gore brings us the latest news. Good morning, Talent.
Good morning, Glenora, and good morning to all our viewers.
Talent, now getting into your first story, I understand that Zimbabwe's biggest supermarket, OK Zimbabwe, tells workers no salaries until business recovers. What exactly is going on?
Yes, one of Zimbabwe's biggest supermarkets, OK Zimbabwe, has suspended all salaries and wages with immediate effect as the struggling retailer corporate rescue proceedings enter a critical stage. The resolution, which was signed on 22 May 2026, states that the company will therefore not be running any payroll beginning of the month of May 2026 until further notice, and in any case until such time that business and revenue return to profitable levels. OK Zimbabwe is one of the country's largest retail chains with outlets across Zimbabwe. The company has been grappling with declining revenues and operational pressures that culminated in the corporate rescue filing earlier this year. The company is in practice asking workers to work for free. OK an emergency meeting on February 23 and resolved to appoint Mbano as corporate rescue practitioner. For the past couple, let's say for just this last year, OK Zimbabwe has been closing down its shops, and most of its supermarkets, they do not have a stock, and they are saying that that is being caused by illegal tuck shops that are just coming up. No one is willing to go into proper supermarkets, into retail supermarkets, to use their United States dollar in those supermarkets, because you find out that in Zimbabwe right now, if you have a US dollar and you go into the supermarket, whatever you're going to buy, let's say for example bread, it's going to be much higher, it's going to be costly, rather than if you go to the tuck shop with that same United States dollar. If you go to the supermarkets with a with the United States dollar, you'll be able to buy more things rather than if you go to the to the retail supermarkets. So, OK Zimbabwe is saying that due to those tuck shops, they have not been able to profit in any way. And right now, they have closed. They had over 54 supermarkets across the country, and most of those have been closed. Those that are still operating, you find out that if you go into those supermarkets, there's literally the shelves in those supermarkets, they are literally empty. They are literally empty. And right now, the supermarket is telling its workers that it's not going to process their salaries, it's not going to process the payroll. So basically, what OK Zimbabwe is asking its workers is that, its employees rather, is that they should work for free, because right now they are in sort of a conundrum, and they are trying to get the business up. So they are saying that that money can actually be used to get the business up. They have been trying for this last couple of months to ensure that they do not continue to incur losses. You'll find out that in the 11 months to February 2026, revenue dipped down from 245 million United States dollars to just 40 million United States dollars, a 84% wipeout, whilst unit sold fell from 208 million to 32 million. The company also carried 38.7 million United States dollars in current liabilities against only 12.8 million United States dollars in current assets, a deficit that left it unable to meet its obligations. 15 underperforming stores were closed as part of early rescue measures, leaving 54 outlets still trading, many of them which are distressed, and they are also hoping that they are going to close down some of those shops. And right now, OK Zimbabwe is selling some of its outlets. OK Zimbabwe is a household name in Zimbabwe, having been founded in the early 19 1960s. So for Zimbabwe to be in such a situation, it's quite sad, especially for Zimbabweans, because it is one of those shops that many Zimbabweans loved and they used to go to, and they were challenges that Zimbabwe would bring to the people of Zimbabwe. They would actually award people cars, houses, and many more. So it is quite distressing for the citizens themselves that Zimbabwe is going through such a phase.
Well, it is definitely concerning. Now, moving on to your next story, right activist and lead founder Linda Masarira is dead rather at 43.
Yes, veteran human rights activist Linda Masarira has died at the age of 43. Masarira, who led the small labor economists and African Democrats opposition party, died in Harare early on Sunday morning, according to her colleagues. And yesterday, President Emmerson Mnangagwa conveyed his condolences following the death of Miss Linda. Tsungirirai Masarira, describing her as a courageous politician who contributed to national dialogue and civic engagement. In his condolence message, President Mnangagwa said her passing was a loss not only to her family, but also to the nation and women across the country. Masarira had been battling poor health for some time, but recently appeared to be on the mend. She entered politics first as a member of the People's Democratic Party, then led by advocate Tendai Biti, before serving as spokesperson for the Thokozani Kupe-led Movement for Democratic Change. She founded LEAD in April 2019, and in 2023 she wanted to run for president, but she failed to run for presidency after the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission raised nomination fees from 1,000 United States dollars to 20,000 United States dollars, and she could not pay that amount, but she wanted to run for presidency. So before she used to activate, she was an activist for women's rights and poor working conditions for employees and also for the young girls and children. So it was quite sad that Zimbabwe has lost such an activist at such a young age.
All right, now the last of your stories, convicted rapist Enimo Zvitsva has been jailed for 89 years after being found guilty of rape, attempted murder, and robbery.
Yes, a notorious and convicted rapist, Enimo Zvitsva, has been jailed for 89 years after being found guilty of rape, attempted murder, and robbery. Zvitsva was facing 4 rape charges, 5 attempted murder charges, and 1 robbery charge. The 35-year-old pleaded guilty to all 10 counts last week when he appeared before Harare Regional Magistrate Ms. Francis Mafumo. Zvitsva caused mayhem in Guruwe, where he resided, and he was going on a spree of killing people and also raping. Before killing those people, he would rape them and kill them afterwards. There are such heinous attacks that he did that the First Lady, Mamai Auxilia Mnangagwa, had to visit him in prison to hear why he did those acts. You find out that he would tell mothers of small children to actually throw their babies into the dam before raping and killing those mothers. So the Guruwe community is quite happy that at last justice has been served, because he had been doing that for a year and so, and the police were failing to actually apprehend him, but they managed to do that early this year, and he was in police custody and he was in prison up until he was convicted just last week. And you also find out that Amai Auxilia Mnangagwa, the First Lady, also went to his to the courts to hear his proceedings, and when he was convicted, she would visit him and to actually understand what was happening and why he was doing such acts. Most people thought that he was insane, or that rather he was going to to say that in court he was mentally unstable, but apparently he did admit that he was doing all of those acts in his right mind. So right now he has been sentenced to 89 years in prison, and he actually admitted and pleaded guilty to all those charges that were laid against him.
Thank you so much, Talent, for bringing us the latest news from the House of Stone.
Welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
All right, we now take a look at our economic news. Getting into our economic news, Royal Air Maroc has suspended 12 international routes due to rising jet fuel prices and declining demand. The airline says the decision is temporary and driven by increased operational costs linked to kerosene prices. Affected routes include destinations from Casablanca to Kinshasa, Brazzaville, Yaoundé, and Libreville, as well as European routes from Marrakesh to Lyon, Marseille, Bordeaux, and Brussels, and from Tangier to Malaga and Barcelona. The airline says the suspension will be reviewed depending on fuel prices and market demand. The move comes amid global energy disruptions linked to geopolitical tensions affecting fuel supply chains and airline profitability. Getting into our next story, in Ivory Coast, rising prices and reduced supply are making it difficult for families to purchase sheep ahead of Eid al-Adha. Traders in Abidjan say supply has dropped sharply due to export restrictions and insecurity in key Sahel supplier countries. Around 75% of livestock for the festival usually comes from Burkina Faso and Mali, but recent bans and transport disruptions have reduced availability. Some traders say supply is down by half compared to last year, pushing prices higher across markets. Many buyers are struggling to afford animals as living costs remain high. Authorities say efforts are underway to boost local production, although domestic livestock is smaller and less preferred for religious celebrations. We now take a look at the financial indicators. Thank you for tuning in and catching up on the latest news within Africa and beyond Africa's borders with Africa Good Morning. From me, Glenora Shipura, until next time.